Welcome everybody, welcome to the channel. Hopefully you're watching this because you're watching the series of videos on how to prepare and spray a room. Now the last video you saw was all about the quick shot and actually spraying woodwork. Now that's been left over the weekend. That's come up lovely. I don't know whether you can see on there. That's got a lovely sheen to it. It's the, I'm looking at it, soft sheen of the anthracite from the Bedeck MSP range. Now, if you watched that previous video, you saw her actually put a Bedeck all prime coat on first, which acts as really an adhesion primer. It's also stops stains and everything under the sun, but it wasn't used for that. It was more of a case of just giving an even surface to the gloss woodwork of the doors and the frames, and also where I'd got round the bottom down here there was new skirting boards that had been just pre-primed MDF. Now we're back after the weekend. That is dry. It takes 30 days to cure, so don't think it's going to be bulletproof until end of the, well, 30 days. It's easy as that. But where I am today, I'm getting ready for spraying. I've got the sprayer back out. That's the 495 ST Max 2. I've got the lance. I've got the extension bar on it, which is a good 12 inches, 30 centimeters. I've got that, and I have now got, because if you remember the last video where I was priming all these walls with the Isomat 2-in-1 primer, my 516 spray tip had gave up the ghost, so I just chucked it in the bin. I have got a brand new 516 which I'm just going to bed in with some clean fresh water just to see how it's spraying. But for now, just before we get on to the spraying, I thought I'd just touch base with you on what we're doing for the preparation of this room. Now I'm just going around checking anything on the ceiling and walls. If there's any last final filling of any fine surface that's needed, I've gone around and done that. I'm also just nibbing down anything that just might be a little bit more preparation on it. But other than that, we're good to go. We had the pole sander just to nib anything off earlier. Well, I'll say earlier in the week, it's a few days ago. But now where I am, I've got all my Silly Boys covers not there because that's a triple socket. It's Silly Boys cover, didn't cover that, but where I've got sockets like that, I've got my Silly Boys back over them. And what I've done, I've actually got I'm looking for it and I've lost it. Sorry about that, I'm back. I thought I had it to hand. What I've done, a bit unusual for me, there's certain areas of this room, particularly above the kitchen units over there, I struggle getting the sprayer into it, so work smarter, not harder. I've gone round, I've got my paint, and my paint is the Premium Color from Isomat. It's about, what is it, about 120 quid a tub. It's really good. It's a flat, durable matte finish, and I love it. It sprays nicely and it brushes and rolls nicely. Don't forget to read the instructions and make sure that you are thinning it accordingly, because it does take a little bit of water to it as well. But what I've done, I've got some pre-made up paint, and I've just gone around the tops of the kitchen units up there, the areas that I'm going to struggle actually doing with the sprayer. So I know that they're all double coated, and if I just whip over it, if I just go onto it slightly with the sprayer, it gives it an extra coat, but I know that all the areas are actually painted. Now I wouldn't normally do that, it's just only if there's areas that I'm going to struggle with getting the sprayer into those nooks and crannies. Similarly, is that a word? Similarly, that reveal round there, it's very tight, and I did struggle getting the sprayer in to get a nice distance away without overloading the paint. With the primer it didn't matter, but this time around I've just gone around with a brush. I've got a nice 2-inch brush. It's what brush have I got? I've got an Arrowworthy Classic, just straight edge brush like that. I've just whipped around the edges, and with the microfiber roller that I showed you earlier in the week, it's one of the Monarch 10 mils, and I've just gone over that. Now, microfiber roller, a 10 mil, is probably the nearest you're going to get to actually a spray finish. So even if you do need to do slight touching up, something like a 10 mil microfiber roller can help you on that. If it's that big a touching up, the quick shot comes out and we can just feather off and blend in areas if we need to touch up with a sprayer. That's why a quick shot is always good to have in your arsenal of spray equipment. But that said, I've just gone over those, and when I come round to these areas, If they get a little bit of overspray on something, it doesn't matter. We know they're covered, but I don't need to go in there and actually paint it. So moving on from that, just quickly, because I'll try and keep this under a 25-minute video. I'll just put that down. I will be spraying with that 516 gold Tritech spray tip, even though it's actually on a Graco machine. That doesn't matter. You can interchange your spray tips and the spray guard. It doesn't matter what spray you've got, because obviously I've got a clean shot on the end as well. Now the plan is I'm going to do the ceilings first, which is like above me here and in the kitchen there, and then drop down onto a wall at a time to get an even coverage. Now, all being well, this paint will be thinned. I'm going to say probably 20, I'm going to have a practice at 20, 25%. I might go to 30, because with me having that 516, I can actually go a little bit thinner on the paint. That will soak in nicely, and hopefully I can get that pressure down, because it was a little bit high with that 2-in-1 primer. I want to be spraying, if I'm round about under 2000, 1800, if I can drop down to 1500, brilliant. Don't get hung up on your spray pressures. As long as it's spraying nicely, you've not got clouds of dust everywhere, don't worry about it. If you have to crank up the pressure slightly just to get rid of a tail, don't worry. As long as it goes on nicely. It's not rocket science, it's only painting. But that is all virtually ready to go. I'll just bed that spray tip in there with some water, so it's not going to be a fresh tip straight with new paint. As I say, that paint I've got a feeling I'll be nearer 25 to 30% thinning to get onto this, and that'll be a nice coat on there. But the plan is, if I can do the crosshatch method of going one way and then the other, bringing that across so it's actually getting 2 coats in one, I'll try that. We will see. Hopefully I can do that. I've done it before, and then that means you don't have to go back over it. But don't overload the paint onto the surface. And remember, you want to be about 12 inches away from the surface when you're spraying. If you're too close, you'll be overloading the paint. If you're too far away, you'll be getting clouds of dust, because it's actually trying to hit the surface and it's going to be missing. Now, when I did the spraying the other day with the 2-in-1 primer, I had very little overspray landing on the floor, and I'll call it bounce back, I'll call it just mist in the air. The reason there was mist in the air is, if you can see, I've got a bulkhead going across here, and when you go across there, if the paint isn't hitting the surface, it will miss the surface on these areas there. If you can imagine, I'm spraying there and it's going beyond the surface. That's the only reason and time that I will be getting that mist in the air. But the floor, there was very little sweeping up. You'll always get a little bit of dust in the air falling. Don't worry about it. But we weren't in clouds of dust. I wasn't covered in loads of paint like a snowman. Remember, I've also got the Max Vac running at about 75%. That is pulling that dust away from the air as well, which, if you've not got a Max Vac, there's a video there. It's brilliant, worth every penny. We're nearly done on this bit. We're probably nearly 10 minutes in just talking about what I'm doing. Right, taping up the woodwork. This is the biggest gripe that people say, I don't want to do spraying because of all the taping up. Yeah, you might be a day taping up, preparing. You might have a couple of hours in the morning preparing with taping up. But you know, when you're spraying it takes you only 25 to 30 minutes and your whole room's done, and it puts the fun back into spraying. Why are you worrying about it? Don't worry about it, do it. Let's get a nice finish, and that's what we've got. Particularly with that woodwork, that is a cracking finish. The woodwork on the skirting as well. But we're taping it up, and what I've done, I've actually gone round with, and I've put it, let me get it again. I'm back. I've actually gone round all the edges with the delicate tape from the Q1 range. It's the purpley tape. Now this is for delicate surfaces. With that being the Bedeck, and it's only been done a few days, I didn't want to chance anything like that colour, if you see the difference. That is a very good tape for actually sticking down and getting straight edges, but it can be a little bit too sticky, even though it's the painting and decorating, it's the painter and decorator, it's the painting and renovation tape. That sometimes is a little bit too much for me. If I've got sound surfaces, it's great. Round plastic door frames and things, that's ideal. But because I've got some woodwork that is a little bit suspect, I don't want to take any chances, and I've gone for the delicate one. So everything now is delicate taped on the top edge. I've started to drop down a drop sheet I've started to drop down a drop sheet on the doors, and if top tip Tuesday, if you can see there, I've ran a bit of tape all the way down and I've cut through it. That will give me a little bit of a draft through on that door, because the utility door is actually open to get some air through. The door to the hall, I will be taping that all the way over. Nobody will be coming in and out of there. And then the skirting boards, if we can just see that, I've protected those and covered them with the paper bagging, like so. I'll bring you over there and just have a quick look. Right, dropped you. And that's what I've done. I've actually taped up round, protected all of it, and I've taped it down so if there is any overspray, it won't be going over that lovely anthracite coloured woodwork. So that's it now. All I've got to do is just do the last bit of taping up, tape up the kitchen again, and then I'll be getting the paint out ready for spraying, and I'll see you in a little while. It's never ending, it's never ending. I'm just about ready to get that kitchen area bagged up. I've finished bagging up the door over there, and what I've done, once I've got all the tapes down around the edges, I've actually gone around with a fine sanding pad and just nibbed down, I don't know if you can see, I've just nibbed down where the overspray is on the top of the skirting. And what I'm doing, because I've got the kit out, and again, I know what it's like when I'm spraying. I know it'll cover all right, but let's just get an extra coat on these areas. So what I'm going to go and do now is just go with that mini roller and literally priming those areas that have got overspray on. I'll do it quickly so you can see what I'm doing. Now that microfiber roller sleeve is really good for, let me see what I'm doing, giving a bit of a textured finish. It's not a lot like it'll be when it's sprayed. It's not going to look like a heavy orange peel, and it's also not going to be with a load of brush marks. I'll just use a brush around the pipe, so as easy as that. And literally this is going to be a 5-minute job. See what I've done there? From it having the overspray down there, just go way, roll it round, just cut onto your tape with that roller, and look at that. Dead simple. So that's what I'm going to do just round there. It'll take minutes to dry. I've also done exactly the same. I was telling you, I've got the City Boys covers. Now, there might be an edge that doesn't get sprayed because of the way you're spraying. So all I've done is literally gone around with a brush and feathered it out. And it's more of a case of the brush, if I can go down there, it's more of a case that the brush is going just across that back edge. Like that, just scrub it round and then just feather it off. There's no brush marks on that, and you know that you've just got underneath and around the edges of that actual Silly Boys. But failing that, I'm virtually good to go. I'm going to get that bagged up and I'll get the paint mixed and ready for spraying. Right, I'm about ready to go. I've got all the kitchen units just bagged over and protected just in case of any fallout, and I have got my paint mixed up. I have gone to 30% on that Isomat Premium Color. I've got the 5/16 spray tip. I've got a sample piece of, I put some papers on there. I've done a little bit of a blast. If you can see the top one, I don't know how close we can get that. If you see the top one there, I've got slight tails on it. I've just increased the pressure and I've lost the tails. Now, that's quite a thinnish paint, which is what I want because I'm spraying with a smaller orifice. If you want to know about orifices and tips and bits and pieces, please check that video out there. But let me just check what I'm spraying at. I've just had a look, I was upside down, just over 1500, which I'm happy with. It's probably just at 1600. So we're spraying at 1600, it's going to be a nice light coat. Where I got the tails and then increased the pressure, I'll probably spend at 15 and it's needed to go to 16. I've now got a soft feather on the edge. I've not got tails or fingers, so we're good to go. Now, I'll try and do a little bit of filming as much as I possibly can on this ceiling. I'm going to do the ceiling first, start that end and come all the way across. Let's see how it goes. Once I've done this ceiling, I'm going to drop onto that one there. I won't bore you with all of this, but we'll come and have a conflab at the end. So all in all, really good. Yeah, I've had the morning just taping up, finishing off any last bits of touching up, going around any plug sockets, filling, all the usual, taping. But you know what? It's not even dinner yet. I'm going to get this sprayed. Well, get the ceilings out of the way anyway. Right, let's get the mask on. Right, don't know whether you can hear me, you probably can do. What I'm going to say to you is don't go too close, don't go too far away, go steady. No need to be walking too quickly, just play it by ear. Sometimes you have to speed up, sometimes you have to slow down. Just monitor it. Don't forget that 50% overlap on your spray fan pattern. And I have tweaked that clean shot at the end, so we have got a nice flow of paint without it actually having a bit of a tail as a shut off. So let's see how we go. I'll start with the angle across there and just go straight onto the wall slightly and just bring it one side to the other. Don't be walking into your spray. Make sure you're walking away from your spray. I'm going to turn the max back on. That's it. I didn't go too mad with that, and what I'm going to do, I've said to you, I'm going to go one way and then the other. So off camera, I'm going to redo that ceiling while it's still wet, and I'll come in from the other side and go over it. But that's the basic principle. I've got a few bits and pieces in the middle that made it a bit awkward for me to do clear, walking up and down, but conquer and capture or whatever it is, I managed to manage with that, just working around it. But nice soft spray fan pattern. The pump wasn't going too much, it was just going dee-dee-dee, you could hear that, and that is nearly covered, but I want to give another coat. So what I'm going to do now, my battery's flashing, say it's nearly ran out, and I'm just going to give that another coat, and that'll be that ceiling finished. I don't know whether you could see across there, I did just go round and get in as much as I possibly could across that top, but I wasn't worried because I'd already gone round with a brush and a roller. So we are covered over those areas above the kitchen units. But for now, ceiling really good. I'll give that another one. I'll drop onto this ceiling here and then I'll bring the walls down. I will see you at the end. So far, so good. Little tip, if you do start seeing any tails, don't be frightened just to turn that pressure up slightly. I just altered it a little bit because I could see a little tail coming. It could be just the filter blocking, it could be anything. But all in all, nice spray fan pattern, 516 gold tip on the Tritech. Very nice, spraying beautifully with that premium colour from Isomat. Catch you later. Right, I think you can hear me. Now, I'm going to tell you, I set the camera up to film me putting a second coat on this area here because I did it before dinner. It had about gone off. Bit of overspray, I'll tell you about that. And what I did, I made sure I'd got enough paint. I'd got nearly 2 10-litre tubs. One was part used. Now the second mix, I just thinned it down a little bit more. There might have been just a little bit over 30% worth of water because I only needed to give a nice wet coat to the first coat. Mask a bit tight. Now that coated up beautifully. I could see where it'd been, you could see where your overlap was, and while it was drying off you can see which direction you go. Now a lot of this was horizontal. I'm getting me horizontal. A lot of this was vertical, so I knew that the second coat pass I was going to do it the opposite way, horizontal, and do a 50-50 overlap. Now you've probably seen there's a little bit more overspray in the air because doing this bulkhead here, it does create a bit of dust. I've got the max vac on nearly 100%, well it's probably about 75 to 80 working away. It is helping. Now that mix of paint, with it being a little bit thinner, creates a little bit more bounce back and dust. But I wasn't bothered. I've got all my prep board on the floor and I knew that I needed to get a nice coat on. And do you know what? I've managed to do all this as a second coat. I've actually gave that kitchen area ceiling there a third because I didn't like how it was soaking into some of the... There were some areas that were quite bad because it was cheap emulsion and it looked like it was soaking in. It had probably dried all right, but I got enough paint and I've just gave it a light wet coat, if that can make sense, going the opposite direction to what I did before, and I went on the width and I used the spotlights as markers to work between the two, and if I had to stop I made sure it was a wet edge that I was going back onto so it doesn't actually leave stop marks. I don't want, so it doesn't actually leave any marks from stopping and then starting, which it won't do if you're keeping it wet. Now all this is now done. I'm going to get the air circulating with the doors open. What I'm going to do now is take the tape off the lights because you'll find it's a lot easier to take the tapes off while the paint on the tape and the paper is wet and not dry. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'll see in a bit and we'll say thank you very much and I'll just show you what it's like. Easy as that. Now I just mentioned about cleaning out the kit. All I'm going to be doing is flushing out the paint that's in the actual pipes and the machine with some cold water. Once I know that the water's circulating through the machine, I will start flushing it through with some warm water and start cleaning it all up. While you're flushing cold water through, that will push any of the remainder paint out on that initial first flush. But that bit of kit is so easy to clean out, I'll probably do it within about 10 minutes. So that's what I'll do. You've seen that on previous videos. Actually looking at the counter, the countdown counter on the camera, I can see that I've been about 11 to 12 minutes coating up this as a second coat. That's in there and in here. Now tell me why you're not spraying. If you're not spraying, tell me why you're not. 11 minutes to do all that and I've got a better finish than brushing and rolling. 11 minutes. Brilliant. Welcome. I said I'd just conclude and do a bit of a conflab. Now I've sprayed everything. I've taken tapes off lights. You can see that. I've taken the tapes off the doors. Now where I'd got that overspray onto the wall, which is a satin finish, the Bedek MSP, that is taking longer to dry than going over the proper plaster, shall we say, and the surface that was the 2-in-1 primer. That's to be expected. So I've carefully taken off tapes. You always get a little bit of tape bleed and pull in some areas. I've got some touching up to do, which will just be with a little, I've got it, fine 1/2-inch brush just to touch in round the bottom where you probably won't see it. Blind man on a galloping horse won't see it. There's a little bit of tape bleed where the white has just crept underneath it as I pulled the tape off. Now that's not a problem. I'll let it all dry and then come back tomorrow, do the final cleaning up and just touch in where it needs to be touched in. Then I can get the door handles back on. I'll take off the last silly boys covers on the sockets and the switches, and then it's just a case of screwing those back into place and just final tidying up. So I'm going to say to you, please watch the videos at the end, but tell me the reasons why you're not spraying at this moment in time. This is an occupied house. The customers needed the kitchen at night, which I've made sure I've had available to them, but I've had easy days working on this. I know there's been taping up, I know there's been cleaning up and things, but actually spraying this to get a near perfect ceiling, near perfect on the walls. How good is it? How good is it? I'm pleased, it looks good. We've got the anthracite colours on the doors. You've got anthracite on the woodwork. So anybody wanting to know the colour of the walls, it's S1000N, and that's one of the colours that you can get through Brewers. I think it's just off their Armstead colour card, and it's been mixed up into Isomat Premium Color. So all I've got to do now is just go around touching up with the fine sign writing brush or a little 1/2 inch, depending on what I've got. I've got a little bit of, you won't probably see it, just a little bit of bleed on the white there. I can just easily touch that up, and that's all I've got to do, and hopefully it'll all be dry so I can do that. I can't do it at the moment because it's still wet. So please watch the videos at the end. Thanks for sticking with me on this marathon. I'm going to say marathon. Was it 25 minutes? Yeah, probably. But there's a lot of information to get out there, and any questions, feel free to ask. So final thing to say, there's a super thanks button there that quite a few of you are pressing and sending me a little bit of money that helps towards the software that I'm doing the video editing, that's costing me about £12 a month, and also the people that are sending me buy me a coffee money. Much appreciated. I say thank you very much. It's very nice that you're doing that. Clearly I'm doing something right if I'm getting super thanks and coffees bought me. Well, hopefully. Again, watch the videos at the end.